OK, we'll keep across that. But let's focus now on the Champions League and take you back to last night. It was headlined by Premier League champions Liverpool, and there was a blockbuster clash as well between Bayern Munich and Chelsea. You can see we've got Dougie Critchely, our European expert, on set for us again. Right, Dougie, before we get into all that, we've obviously desperately want to chat to you about the big news that broke in the last hour or so. Jose Mourinho potentially returning to the Champions League with Benfica. How surprised are you at that?
Yeah, this is a really, really surprising story. It's actually worth remembering that Jose Mourinho's first job in management was with Benfica in the year 2000. He only lasted 11 games there, won 6 of them, had a dispute with the board. He asked for a contract extension and was eventually fired. He then moves on and eventually ends up at FC Porto, Benfica's biggest rival. He wins the UEFA Cup, the Champions League, 2 Portuguese league titles, and the rest is history. Chelsea, Real Madrid, Inter Milan, etc., etc. But this is so fascinating because Benfica were the side that knocked out his previous team, Fenerbahce, out of the Champions League this year in qualifying. They won 1-0 with Kerem Aktürkoğlu scoring the only goal in that game. Aktürkoğlu then joined Fenerbahce, probably under the promise of working with Jose Mourinho, and now Mourinho has ended up at his former club Benfica. So it's a really fascinating turn of events. I think it's fair to say that Mourinho's career has slightly dwindled in the last few years. He's been on a bit of a European tour. Last year at Fenerbahce, they finished 9 points behind Galatasaray. Benfica also had a disappointing campaign. They finished 2 points behind Sporting CP, who of course changed manager twice, including Ruben Amorim during last season. But you do feel like Benfica, having lost Angel Di Maria, Alvaro Carreras, who's now Real Madrid's left back as well, they probably need a figure like Jose Mourinho, so experienced, to guide them through this period of transition. But again, a bit of a surprise given where he's been in the past. Yeah,
and a surprise this morning. I read the news this morning, fresh, not even realising the other manager had even gone, Laja. But there we go, such is the quick turnaround. OK, so Benfica's 3-2 defeat to Karabag. That was one of the standout games last night. There were plenty of goals elsewhere, though, weren't there, Dougie? Goodness me.
Yeah, there really were. I mean, it's worth just touching on Benfica's loss to Karabag. They went 2-0 up and then lost 3-2 to Karabag. That's the first ever victory for an Azerbaijani side in the Champions League. But there was so much drama throughout last night. Juventus versus Dortmund was probably the pick of the games. 4-4, all those 8 goals scored in the second half. Dortmund were up 4-2 going into the 87th minute. Wow. Dortmund scored twice in the final 10 minutes or so of that one with Dusan Vlahovic and Lloyd Kelly. Lloyd Kelly had also scored at the weekend against Inter Milan, so amazing last few days for the former Bournemouth and Newcastle defender. But Dusan Vlahovic was really the guy that turned it around with 2 goals and 1 assist. He was under pressure this season, given the fact that they'd signed Lois Openda and Jonathan David, 2 strikers in his position, but he's responded really, really well. The other game worth touching on is probably Kylian Mbappe's performance against Marseille at home. They went 1-0 down through Timothy Weah, but 2 Kylian Mbappe penalties. For a dominant Real Madrid, they were slightly unfortunate to not be further ahead prior to Dani Carvajal's red card. And from an English perspective as well, Trent Alexander-Arnold's slightly difficult start to life at the Bernabeu continued. He was injured after just 5 minutes of that game. Carvajal comes on, then gets sent off. So Xabi Alonso will be praying that Trent Alexander-Arnold's injury isn't too serious.
Yeah, absolutely. OK, what about tonight's games? What are the chances of Nicolas Jackson coming back to haunt Chelsea, perhaps?
Well, he could do. He's very much eligible, so he could face his former team, Chelsea. I think a few eyebrows were raised over the fact that they paid a £14.3 million loan fee to sign him from Chelsea. Uli Hoeneß, their club's honorary president, kind of came out with some pretty unhelpful remarks saying they won't make that move permanent. He needs to start over a certain amount of games, which must have been quite demoralising for Nicolas Jackson. But he's effectively swapped being Chelsea's third-choice striker behind Liam Delap and João Pedro, or whatever order you want to put that in, to being Bayern's second choice behind Harry Kane, who at 32 might need to be rotated a little bit more this season. And given the fact that Nicolas Jackson can also play on the left wing, where Leroy Sané and Kingsley Coman and obviously Thomas Müller also left the club this summer, Bayern did need new recruits, and Luis Diaz has started really well there as well. But there is the block of Harry Kane in terms of game time, who started the season exceptionally well. 5 goals and 3 assists already in the Bundesliga. Bayern have looked absolutely imperious so far, but they are under a little bit of pressure. Since winning the Champions League in 2020, they've actually only reached the semi-final once in the last 5 years. So Vincent Kompany will be hoping to go one step further against Enzo Maresca's side, and I think they've got a decent chance. They have failed to lose any of the last 36 group stage games at home, dating back to December 2013. So it's a really difficult test for Enzo Maresca's men.
Gosh, OK. Right, Premier League champions Liverpool, they start the European campaign at home to Atletico Madrid. How tough a start is this one?
Well, I think a lot of Liverpool fans, when they saw the draw, might have been a little bit concerned, but Atletico Madrid really haven't been at their best so far this season. At the moment, they sit 11th in La Liga. They're already 7 points behind closest rivals Real Madrid. They're 5 points off the Champions League spots already. Liverpool, meanwhile, have kind of forced their way into 4 wins, let's say. They are the first side in Premier League history to score 4 winners after the 80th minute. Absolutely remarkable start from them. I don't think it's necessarily clicked in terms of a lot of their new signings.
Yeah.
But the same can be said about Atletico Madrid. They've spent 360 million euros in the last 3 windows, bringing in 17 new players. And Diego Simeone's side have already lost to Espanyol. They've drawn against Alaves. They've drawn against Elche. And they only got their first win of the weekend against Villarreal. Antoine Griezmann probably hasn't looked at his absolute best so far. So Liverpool, I think, are the strong favourites for this one, despite their new signings bedding in as well.
Finally, we have last year's winners, of course, Paris Saint-Germain. How difficult will it be to defend their title?
Yeah, really, really difficult. I mean, since the Champions League was rebranded in 1992, there's only one side that's won consecutive titles, and that was Real Madrid in their three-peat in 2016, 2017 and 2018. It's even difficult to reach consecutive finals, let alone that. Juventus did it in 97 and 98, Bayern did it in 2012 and 2013, and Liverpool did it in 2018 and 2019. PSG also went deep in the Club World Cup after a 65-game campaign last year, or that was included in the 65 games. So they effectively would have played for 2 years straight by the time the semi-finals and final come around next year. It's already kind of having an effect on them. I think Ousmane Dembele's already picked up an injury, Desiree Doué too, although given the quality in that squad, the depth, you saw Bradley Barcola score 2 goals against Lens at the weekend. They've started really, really effectively, and they've got a nice game tonight against Atalanta, who lost their manager Gasperini in the summer. Ademola Lookman wanted to leave Atalanta all summer as well. So it's potentially a nice start for PSG, but as it stands, I think a semi-final would be a really good effort for a club that have played so much football over the last 12 months.
Yeah, absolutely. Dougie, thank you very much
Pleasure.
indeed.